Hi everybody, my name's Andrew and today I'm driving a BMW 330i xDrive Touring. I've actually been living with this car for the last 6 months or so, and so today I want to talk about a few things that annoy me about it, as well as a few hidden features or unique details that you might not know about the BMW F30 platform cars. Quick side note before we get into the video, I've actually owned two F30 BMWs now. This is my second one. I had a gray pre-LCI sedan and now this LCI wagon, so I am fairly well versed in the ins and outs of this car, and you may hear me refer to the other one throughout this video. And relating to that, I know that technically this is an F31 because it's a wagon, but as far as I'm aware, everything that I'm going to say in this video relates to all of the F3X, 3 and 4 series cars from this generation. Alright, so the first thing that annoys me about this car is actually to do with getting in and out. Obviously you have the full comfort access keyless system here, which is great, but let's say you have a passenger with you and they need to get in the car as well. When you unlock it like that, it just unlocks the driver's door. So how do you let them in? You hit this button right here. And you may be thinking, what's the big deal about that? Other cars have them in the center rather than on the doors, but that is the only lock and unlock button on the inside of this car, and as far as I can tell, there's no reason for it. As far as I know, the only reason for it is just BMW being a little bit cheap, because obviously it's less expensive to put one button there rather than put one on all four doors. Because this is not a Jeep, you're not going to need to take the doors off, so there's no reason why the button can't be on the doors. All right, so now let's say you've arrived to wherever you're going and you and your passenger are going to be exiting the vehicle. And I think most people as passengers would instinctively be looking for a lock button on the door somewhere to let themselves out of the car, unless you're aware of what the car is. But then you just try to pull on the door handle and push and nothing happens. Well, BMW does actually let you out this way, because as you may have heard there, when I pulled the door handle once, it actually unlocked the door there. So you simply just pull it again and then the door's open. That actually works for all four doors, but it's not something that people would really know about, and that's the issue with it. Actually, the second thing on my list is also to do with the door locks. As you may have seen, they're the sort of old school door pins there, but they rattle a lot. For some reason though, it seems to only be the front passenger door and the rear left door where they rattle. The other two I haven't noticed yet. My previous F30 had the same exact issue in coincidentally the same exact places, and I'm sure that this one will start to do it more and more over time as well. Number 3 is right next to that lock-unlock button, and it's not the screen. That looks perfectly fine in person. It's just flashing like that because of the frame rate of the camera. It's actually to do with the climate controls. These are dual-zone automatic climate controls, as you would expect in a car like this, but the issue that I have with them is that there's no way to sync the two zones. My previous F30 was like this as well, and it's driven me crazy because I'm a little bit OCD and I have to have both sides always on the same temperature, so I have to constantly be changing both dials to do that. Number 4 is to do with this car's shifter. As you may have seen before, it's got this electronic gear selector down here, and most BMWs with an automatic transmission from a certain point on have these electronic selectors, and I actually think it's pretty neat for the most part. It does a few cool things, which I'll talk about in a minute, but there is one thing that annoys me about it, and that is, let's say you're parking and you open your door like this because you want to see how close you are to the curb or whether you're straight or whatever. Let's say then you want to make an adjustment and your door is still open. Well, as you'll see here, when I try to roll forward, it slams it back in park. And it says, secure vehicle against rolling. Now, I understand why they did this. It's because the car thinks when I'm doing that I'm getting out, and I've forgotten to put it in park, so it's kind of like a safety thing, but it's still annoying. This particular car doesn't have a 360 camera, so whenever I'm parking in an end space, for instance, I will instinctively try to do what I just showed you there and you know, check how close I am and whatever. And I almost always forget that it does that. And finally, the last item that I want to mention is actually sort of a multi-layered item. It's all to do with the infotainment in this car. Now, don't get me wrong, BMW's iDrive system is fantastic. It's great for the most part. However, this car does not have Apple CarPlay for some reason. BMW decided to make it a $300 option on this car. Even though it's new enough to have it, and a lot of other cars had it as standard, cheaper than this. But BMW made it an option. In this particular car, the original owner didn't select it, so I don't have it. There's no way for me to get it unless I buy a retrofit kit, which is like $600 or $700. Honestly though, I actually don't miss CarPlay as much as I thought I was going to when I bought this car. It's not a touchscreen anyway, and of course it's got Bluetooth, so I can just use that. And that would be fine if the Bluetooth wasn't as glitchy as it is. What do I mean by that? Well, usually once every couple weeks or so, it will just completely refuse to recognize my phone. Even though my phone shows that it's connected to the car doesn't recognize it, and will just, you know, therefore won't play anything, won't do anything. And so there's only two ways that I've figured out to get around this. One is to turn the car off and let it sit for a few minutes, or the other is to completely delete and repair my phone, which does get a little bit old after a while. Now, despite all those things, I love this car. Overall, it is a fantastic car, and I'm gonna do a whole in-depth walk-around video at some point pretty soon and tell you about why I think that. But like I said at the beginning, I'm gonna share a few unique things or possibly hidden features that you may not know about on the BMW F30s today. Funny enough, the first thing on this list is actually to do with getting in and out of the car again. As you may be able to hear, the engine is still running, and what I'm going to do now with the key in my pocket is lock the car. And you may be thinking that doesn't sound very revolutionary, and I may be wrong, but if you think about it, there's not actually that many other vehicles where you can do that. If I'm just oblivious and you can think of tons of other cars that do that, let me know in the comments, but either way, that is actually a super useful thing to be able to do. For instance, I've gotten into the habit lately of utilizing that whenever I'm going into a restaurant real quick to pick up an order or something like that. Even if I'm by myself, I'll still do that just because I'm lazy. The second thing is also somewhat of a common thing, I feel like, but not all cars have it, so I want to show it off anyway. And that is being able to put the windows up and down remotely. However, this car is a little bit strange in the sense that with the key fob, you can only put the windows down. You can't put them back up from here for whatever reason, but I'll show you that now. If I just hold the unlock button, see, they're starting to go down there. And then if I want to put them back up, what do? Well, you can actually put them back up from the door handle, specifically from the lock pad here on the door handle. See, I lock the car and then the windows start to go back up. It's a little bit odd, but it's a neat feature anyway. Number 3 is to do with the Comfort Access keyless entry system that this car has. It includes a kick sensor for the tailgate, which is not super uncommon on cars nowadays, especially luxury cars. But the unique thing about it is that my old F30 sedan had the same thing, even though it doesn't have a tailgate or a powered trunk lid at all. Of course, this one, since it's a power tailgate, does work to close it as well, which the sedan, my particular sedan anyway, did not do that. However, it is still neat that all F30s with Comfort Access have the kick sensor. Hopping back into the car now, number 4 is to do with the seats in this car. Specifically that they have power adjustable or inflatable side bolsters there. And the other neat thing is that both front seats have the same exact range of motion, meaning that the passenger seat also has power side bolsters. Number 5 is these preset buttons here on the dash. They look like radio presets, and you can use them as such, but you can also program them to pretty much anything within the infotainment system. So if you want to set them to whatever shortcuts you might create as far as like navigation destinations, or set them to bring up other menus like the trip computer, you can do that. I'm going to give you a bonus item for this section as well, and that is the electronic gear selector that you saw previously. Specifically, if you have the transmission in sport and then put it back in park, the shifter will automatically pop itself back to the normal position. Also, if you leave the car in gear and then turn the engine off, it will put itself back in park, which is actually kind of useful. I do believe all BMWs with the electronic shifters have the same functionalities, so it's not really an F30 specific thing, but it is still neat. And hey, this car does it, so it counts for the video. If you enjoyed this video or found it informative, give it a thumbs up, or consider subscribing for plenty more content with this car and others.